He walked into that school every day like a shadow, always present but barely seen. His name was Daniel Silva, 15 years old, black, from a working-class family, a scholarship student at one of the wealthiest private high schools in New Jersey. Hillcrest Academy wasn't built for kids like Daniel. It was a place of legacy, power, and privilege, where students wore designer jackets with their names embroidered, where last names mattered more than test scores. Daniel didn't arrive in a black SUV with tinted windows. He got off the city bus, alone, wearing his brother's hand-me-down coat and carrying a beat-up backpack his mom had bought from a thrift store. He didn't speak much. He didn't have the latest phone. He didn't eat in the trendy cafe on campus. He sat by himself under the stairs, eating the peanut butter sandwich his mom packed with love, but no money. And that's all it took. He became a target, not because he did anything wrong, but because he didn't fit the mold. It started with whispers. Did you see what he's wearing? Probably lives in the projects. Bet he only got in because of diversity. But the worst came from one family, the Millers. If Hillcrest had royalty, it was them. James Miller was a powerful real estate investor. He donated thousands to the school every year and had a building wing named after him. His wife Deborah always looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, except colder. Their daughter Claire was the definition of it girl, beautiful, cruel, and always surrounded by people who feared her more than they liked her. And then there was Brad. Brad Miller was a senior, star quarterback and full-time nightmare. He didn't just ignore Daniel, he enjoyed making him feel small. One morning, Daniel opened his locker and found his books soaked in juice. Next to them, a crumpled note that read, "Maybe you belong in the kitchen like your mom." He didn't respond, not with words, not with tears. He just cleaned it up, threw away the note, and showed up to class like always. But it kept coming. Brad tripped him in the hallway once just to get a laugh. Claire posted a photo of Daniel's worn-out sneakers on Instagram with the caption, "Scholarship chic." Even teachers didn't step in. It was as if Daniel didn't matter enough to defend. And still he kept going. Because at home, giving up wasn't an option. His mother, Teresa, worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices during the day and folding laundry at night in a hotel basement. She came home with sore feet, cracked hands, and a smile that said, "I believe in you." Every night Daniel studied until his eyes burned, not for grades, for her. Then came the flyer. It was taped to a bulletin board in the hallway near the science lab. End of semester essay contest. Theme, what does it mean to have value? Winning essay would be read aloud during the winter assembly. Anonymous submissions only. Daniel tore off a tab. At first he didn't plan to enter. Why bother? No one cared what he had to say. But that night, sitting at the small kitchen table while his little brother slept on the couch, he picked up a pen. And he wrote. He wrote about the nights his mom skipped dinner so he and his brother could eat. He wrote about walking past luxury stores he'd never enter. He wrote about how people confuse price with worth and how strength isn't always loud. He didn't write for a grade. He didn't write for revenge. He wrote to survive, to release the weight. And when he finished, he sealed the paper in an envelope, wrote nothing but entry Salka 27, and dropped it in the submission box the next morning. Then he forgot about it. The days that followed were no different. More whispers, more smirks, more silence. Until the day of the winter assembly. That was the day everything changed. The gymnasium was packed. Students laughing, scrolling, waiting for it to be over. The Millers sat front row, Claire fixing her hair, Brad tapping his phone. Then the director walked onto the stage with a single sheet of paper. He tapped the mic and said, "Before we end today's assembly, I want to share something. It's the winning essay from this semester's contest. No name was attached, but I think you'll all know who wrote it by the time I finish reading." The room fell quiet, some out of curiosity, others from boredom. Daniel sat in the back row, alone, head down. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our exclusive new stories. Then the director began to read. The director unfolded the sheet and looked out across the auditorium. A pause, then he began reading. "I don't wear what you wear, not because I don't want to, but because my mother's paycheck has to choose between clothes and rent. So I wear the same coat every day, the one she saved up for. That's value. A few heads turned. I don't eat lunch in the cafe. Not because I don't like people, but because I'm tired of pretending I don't notice the stares when I pull out my sandwich. My mom made it at 5 a.m. before leaving for work. That's value. The room began to shift. Whispers faded. Even Claire stopped scrolling her phone. Brad leaned forward slightly, brow furrowed. I've been called names that weren't mine, laughed at by people who don't know my story. But I show up anyway. I work hard. I help others, even when they pretend I don't exist. That's value. I've learned that what you wear doesn't make you worthy, and money doesn't equal meaning. You want to know what it means to have value? It means getting up every day when the world tells you not to bother, and showing up anyway. Silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty. It feels heavy, uncomfortable, like truth just walked in and sat beside you. The director lowered the paper and said quietly, that essay was written by Daniel Silva. You could feel the collective inhale of the room. All eyes turned to the back row. Daniel didn't move. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't used to being looked at like that, not with mockery, not with pity, but with something else entirely. Respect. The applause started slow. One student stood, then another. Soon the room was on its feet. Even some teachers wiped their eyes. Claire looked stunned. Brad sat frozen, his face pale. Daniel didn't smile. He didn't cry. He just stood up and walked out. Not out of shame, out of peace. Because for the first time, he didn't need to defend himself. The words had done it for him. The days that followed weren't perfect. Some kids still whispered. Some teachers still hesitated. But something had changed. One of Daniel's teachers pulled him aside after class and said, "You made us look at ourselves. Thank you." Another student asked if he could sit with him at lunch. He even received an email from a university prep program offering mentorship and a spot in a youth writing workshop. But more than any award or applause, Daniel felt something deeper. He wasn't just the scholarship kid anymore. He was a writer, a voice, a presence. And the Millers, they didn't apologize. Of course they didn't. Brad avoided him in the halls. Claire never made eye contact again. But the power they held over him was gone. Because Daniel had learned something they never taught at Hillcrest. The most dangerous kind of strength is quiet strength. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't scream. It writes. It speaks. It shows up. And it changes the room. So what happened in that auditorium? A director read a paper. A school stood still. And a boy they tried to silence spoke louder than anyone had all year. Daniel didn't fight back with fists. He didn't sink to their level. He told the truth, and they had no choice but to listen. Because sometimes it only takes one story to remind the world that value has nothing to do with wealth and everything to do with courage.